All right, we're going to go ahead and jump in. As I started saying, my name is Troy Dudley. I am principal of Red King High School, but I'm also have the pleasure of being the director of World Academy. I'm going to go into this. First of all, we're just going to spend some time, and I'll have a presentation up, and we're going to kind of look through and just share with you some of the basics of World Academy and how it works and what it looks like. And then many of you have submitted questions, and I want to spend the bulk of our time answering some of those questions. So we'll try to get through as many of those. We're going to try to get through as many of those as possible, but always feel free to shoot me an email and ask other questions if you need be. We do have an hour together this evening, and then I do have at 6:30. I do have to. I'm presenting this in Spanish as well. So we're going to go ahead and just start jumping into it. As I commandeer your site. All right, some of the information we're going to go through is definitely based off some of the questions that you had asked. First and foremost, there's a lot of questions around who, is the staff, who's running it. So here's some of the who. The administrative staff. There's myself. I have been in the district since, 97. And I was at a middle school for about 6 years at Berry Creek, and then came to Red Canyon, and ultimately with World Academy as well in 2003. So I've been with the program for quite some time in a leadership role in nearly most of those years. You can also see on there's two other administrative names on there. Christina Goslin, she is an amazing assistant for our secondary folks, 6 through 12. She is a former principal as well, and a huge asset for us in helping run the program. And then you also see Monica Lammers on there. Some of you might know that name, very successful elementary principal for years at EVES, EVES, and she is also helping with the program, and she helps primarily with our K through 5 students. Other than that, you can see some instructional staff on there. These are the current staff that we have that have been working with World Academy for quite some time. And then, based on potential need and size, in terms of however many students, participate in this group or in the school, there's a really good chance that number will increase. So that's kind of some of the who. So let's take a little time to talk about a little bit about what is World Academy. So World Academy is an online program that is part of Eagle County Schools. And that's a very important thing to remember, that this is still part of Eagle County Schools, and it has been since its inception. For years, we have been serving K through 12. It is a completely online program. It is basically when I say online, basically I pay a vendor, the district pays a vendor to offer the curriculum. And then we use ECS staff to support and interact with the students and to ensure that they're being successful. It is 100% online though. It is a proven curriculum. As a school, we've been doing this, I can't even remember actually the start of it, but it's got to be more than 12 years now. We've had some students interacting with an online program. So we do have quite a bit of experience of working with students in this method. I'll talk about a little bit later, kind of who those students are and why students have chosen World Academy in the past. As we know, that's kind of changed a little bit over the current events. It is something that's self-paced. That's why a lot of families have always chosen it. When I say that, meaning you can go faster, but if a student starts struggling and falling behind, there's definitely a lot of interaction and support to help keep them on pace. But it's not as rigid as, say, a regular traditional brick and mortar schedule of certain times that you have to be in there. A question I've often gotten, is it challenging? Absolutely. It is very easy to differentiate to meet the needs to make sure all students are challenged appropriately. You can amp it up for sure in terms of the rigor. As a parent, I've done that as well with my own student. So there's definitely very challenging. Typically, it's there for students, and it can definitely challenge kiddos that are on that college pathway. That being said, it's also able to be adjusted to the student level, and it's very flexible in that, depending on who the student is, or if a student's stronger in one area versus another. If they're stronger in math, then maybe they're reading and writing, that we can make those adjustments. And so it's not too challenging, because it can be appropriate for whoever the student is to meet their levels. That's where that individualized part comes in. Going back to who I am and what I've been doing for years for Eagle County schools, in a traditional method, traditionally schools have always been really, really strong at taking as many kiddos as possible and fitting into the school. What we're really good at both World Academy and Red Canyon is taking the student and fit the school to the student. So we have that individualized opportunity that every student has a different experience in terms of the courses, or maybe what they're doing and the level that they're at. One way I try to word it is, yes, it's using technology, it's online, but there's a lot of human supports. That's what makes World Academy different, because it is a local school. It is, staffed and run by folks here in the Valley. There's a lot of human supports in there that we can really be there with the kiddos, but obviously it is a primarily technology-based program. Why have folks kind of gone this route in the past? Is the flexibility of the schedule. Historically, we have a lot of students that travel, or families that travel, and they like the flexibility. They have jobs possibly that the family needs to leave the Valley frequently, so they like the flexibility of World Academy. Often we have kiddos that are athletes that might compete in different sports where they're often on the road, or possibly going to Denver regularly. So a lot of folks like the flexibility of it, and that's why they choose World Academy, an online school. A lot of times folks come to us because they like the individuality of the courses, so they know that we can customize it to meet their needs. There's a lot of vendors out there. There's a lot of options out there in terms of online. A lot of folks come to us because they are still connected to Eagle County schools, and that comes with a lot of resources. Obviously, counselors, different support staff, different things that we have within the district. So that's often why folks come to World Academy. They want that connection. That last bullet on there is kind of a new one. I've definitely talked to a lot of folks here this last couple of weeks. They just kind of want that known, and they want a kind of a consistent known for the school year, and they're a little nervous about kind of the numbers and what's happening. So that's one piece, is that it's kind of a consistent program that's had a lot of experience. The other part with that I'm talking to a lot of folks this week, last week as well, is that they just know they have to be home full time. They know that their students, there's somebody at risk in the family of COVID-19, and so they want the security and the safety of this program, that they can be home, because it is 100% virtual. When? How does the calendar work? What does it look like? There's a lot of questions there that I'll definitely get into that you submitted, but the school follows the World Academy, or the ECS calendar. So I put the calendar into the program, and assignments are only given towards students on actual days that we're in school. So it does follow the Eagle County Schools calendar. The students can work if they want, though. They can use breaks. They can get ahead that way. A lot of students, if they have different events coming up, different things coming up, they do have flexibility where they might work over breaks. If they start slipping behind, they'll use that time to catch up. So it is available 24/7. Often we have students in different time zones traveling around the world that they're trying to communicate with us, and they're working at completely different hours than us. So it is always available. It is completely web-based. It is all 100%. you don't need a software. Any browser will be able to access the curriculum. In terms of part of the win, there is teacher interaction and support that obviously needs to be scheduled. Even though the kids are kind of turned into vampires and working at all hours of the day these days in our current reality, there is certain times that teachers are available. So that sometimes can determine, when the students might receive support, is that they're going to have to make sure that it's at those times the teacher's available. In terms of the when, there is some kind of slowdown points within the system where the system will pause students' performance. For example, if a student's been working through a unit and they're coming up on a test, it will pause them before they take the test to make sure that they're ready. So the teacher and the student can review their performance and make sure that they're ready before they proceed on. The system will also pause the students if they do poorly on a certain assessment. Then it would, they would need to do a request a retake, and that involves reviewing the material and things like that. So there is some pauses in there in terms of the when and how it works. That's not going to let students just fly through the curriculum. The courses then are resumed as soon as the staff and student kind of review their performance. In terms of the when, one thing I can't say strongly enough is, as a family, if you choose this option, it's crucial that you create a routine. We know students are much more successful when they have a routine and they have a kind of a plan as a family of when they're going to interact with the program. In terms of the where, so it is 100% virtual. There is no need to come into school. You're not required to do that. We have had drop-in labs in the past at this time until it's deemed safe and we make sure we have appropriate safeguards in place. The labs will be offered virtually at this time, and that'll be on teacher schedules when they're available, or possibly appointments that students might need to make with staff as maybe their schedule coincide or is in conflict with the teacher's schedule. So in terms of where, it is 100% virtual. You don't have to be here in the Valley. It does give you that flexibility wherever you're at to access the material and interact with our staff. In terms of the how, we use Edgenuity. You can go ahead and look at Edgenuity and some of the products, and I can pull that up here in a second and show you a little bit of what that looks like. Basically, there's two different systems here. There's the K5 and there's the 6 through 12. I'm going to talk just a little bit about the K5. Actually, I'm going to back that up. I'm going to go to the 612. Long story short, we used to use a different product up until last year called Odysseyware. Odysseyware was purchased by Edgenuity. Looking at Edgenuity as a product, we are much more, we were very pleased with it. It does a lot of the things that Odysseyware didn't do for us. So last year, the second semester, we actually piloted this program with a lot of our 6 to 12 students, and we had much greater success. It's a much better program. You can see a quick screenshot that I have on there. Basically, that's a dashboard. You can see a couple of different things when you look at this. You can see that this student has a number of different classes. You can see it gives you information about where the student is, their overall grade. When you see green, that means they're ahead of pace. When you see blue, that means they're on pace. If you see red, that means they're behind pace. They can just go on to their next activity here. If you click on this icon and here, it'll then take you deeper in so you can see the whole course and how it's aligned. So it sits up kind of like a Google Classroom would, and you can jump into it. At the secondary level, these classes are all pre-created. They're all aligned to state standards. It's kind of a plug and play that we have in there. It's not necessarily aligned to the same scope and sequence, meaning they've kind of built the courses. So Eagle County Schools scope and sequence could be a little bit different, but overall the standards are going to be the same. You can individualize these levels to meet the student needs, even though they're in there. Edgenuity does a nice job. So if a student's behind, it doesn't turn really like a lower level kiddish. It stays appropriate for the age, but yet also appropriate for the learners. You can assign certain standards to kiddos. There's great resources in there, guided notes, tools to help the students. There's translators, there's scripts, so you can read the scripts, there's digital notes. There's a lot of supports built within it for all the students. With the 6 to 12, there's not as much parent involvement. At this time, you're kind of a cheerleader on the side. What it is, and the reason that we really like Edgenuity is that there are videos, and it's just like instruction. And parents, teachers, a certified teacher pops up and will be doing the instruction. It's not a live feed, it's taped, but it's not just like reading through a textbook. There's a really nice video component that's there for the students. As the students are working, they have to watch the videos. They can't just jump to the end. That was a problem we would run into with Odyssey, whereas kids just not really interacting with the material sometimes. So the nice part with Edgenuity is you have to watch the videos, you have to interact with them. You can't just fly through it. After you watch it the first time, you do have control over it to go back and forth. In terms of the progress, as a staff, we monitor the student progress pretty closely. We have weekly meetings monitoring where the students are, and then coming up with a plan of actions of what supports we need to do if we have like this case where a kiddo has fallen behind in a particular section. So that's kind of how the secondary 6 through 12 looks. There are more than just these core contents. Am I still there? Sorry, I'm getting an error message on the screen. Is it still presenting there?
Troy, we're seeing your camera. We're seeing you on camera, not your desktop.
I apologize for that because that's not a good site. There we go. Thanks, Dan. Sound like Dan. All right, looks like I have you back. So that's the 6 to 12 and what it looks like. In terms of the elementary, with the elementary, the courses will be more aligned to what the scope and sequence is in the regular classroom. With these, you customize it a lot more, so it's not as much of a plug and play. So we would have these aligned. So they're kind of doing the same stuff that the district's doing at that same time, because we will be customizing them to match the U County curriculum. You still have the individualized leveling that I talked about before. You can see just a couple different screenshots on here. Everything is digital. So the books, the readings and all that, it is all in here. But one thing that's super important to understand about the K-5, we're all kind of concerned about how much time kids are going to spend looking at a screen. These are all printable, and there's a lot of resources that you can print off to support your students. So if you're just like, hey, we need a break from looking at the computer, you can print off these worksheets, for lack of a better word, and the student can interact with them that way, and then you can just scan it or take a picture of it and fire that into the teacher. So there is a lot more of the guided notes or printable worksheets. Again, the student's progress is monitored by the certified staff. One thing that is important to really understand, I want to make sure I'm very clear, is that bullet I skipped there, and I did that on purpose because I wanted to take a moment on that. This one does involve more parent involvement there with the student. Obviously you can see there's still interactive screens there, but there's definitely more of a parent as a learning coach and as a support for the students, just because of the age. As they get older, what we found, fourth, fifth grade, there's a lot more independence that they're able to have, but it's a matter of the executive functioning and being able to work through the material, that there's definitely more assistance needed at this level with the K through 5 program. So that's some of the kind of the basics I thought I would just run through, at this time. I want to just kind of give you a little bit of the overview of where we are and who we are, and that's some of the basics. But I definitely want to spend a little bit more time with your questions, because we've had a lot of great questions coming in, and my thought was just to answer those for you as we're going through. The first one here was in regards to a variance. The students on the variance is a concern as how that would impact. That's actually a question I can't answer for you. You would have to talk to your neighborhood schools on that one in terms of the impact of that on there. The next question is, how easily can a student transition from in-person class to online learning? We've always found the transitions pretty easy to this program. Especially with Edgenuity and the fact that it's got the web-based videos. It's got some great orientation materials on there, videos that they can watch. Plus you have the human entity right here. So the transition's usually pretty good. We never really had that as an issue. The hard part of the transition is creating that schedule. When students don't have a schedule, when they don't when they kind of slip under the radar a little bit, and as a parent, we're just kind of trusting our kiddos where they're at. And that's why we have our frequent meetings to try to prevent that. But the hard part is the transition. You might have experienced that fourth quarter last year, where there's sometimes that transition is difficult. With this, it's really nice. So it's very clear dates. There's that tracking. It breaks the whole semester up by dates and say, hey, you should be here. You should have this done by this date. And it's very clear on that. So I'd say that's the hardest part of the transition, is just kind of that executive function and making sure you're staying on it. The next question was accelerated programs. Feel free to look through the course catalog. If you just do Edgenuity course catalog, you can Google that. And with that, they'll show you how the course is. Everything should be available for you and your students. There's plenty of options on there. In terms of accelerating, it's not a problem. If your student was on the path to be accelerated, we do that as well. It's super easy. It's a couple clicks of a button, and it's easy to accelerate. It's not a problem. And it follows the normal course code, which we can, in terms of the other part of the question is in terms of the leveling. So we follow the course code, kind of the same path and sequence. The nice part of this, it can be adjusted if there's certain holes in a student's learning. We can assign certain standards for that kiddo to catch up. Yeah, no, I turned it off. I'm just answering questions now. Thanks. So the next question was, who are the teachers and what are the experience credentials? They're all certified staff, and that's the key. I kind of went through the roster earlier, if you missed that, but they're all certified staff. They're all licensed teachers that are doing the work with your students, and they do have experience at your students' levels as well. So it's not just like they're all high school teachers. They all have supports. And I'm seeing the chat things popping up. I will try to get those as well after I run through these. The next question, is it easier to start World Academy and return to school if it opens, or start at the neighborhood school? If you're comfortable starting at the neighborhood school, I think that would probably be the better option for you in terms of instead of starting Edgenuity then switching back. I think, I think that would be a great place to start. Edgenuity is always there. It could be harder to transition into a classroom. It's super easy to transition back into World Academy. So if you're not sure which one's better to start, I personally think your neighborhood school would probably be a better place to start. What does a typical day look like on World Academy? basically when they log in on that dashboard, you saw on those little screens there, you have assignments in there. As a student, you have a plan. You simply log in and you just start working through it. You can look ahead if there's a project, if there's something bigger, you can kind of plan through that. For the older students, we usually say plan on maybe an hour a course. Is kind of a ballpark. With Edgenuity, the nice part is, and the reason why it's a better product is the videos are incredible, I think, and supportive for students. And the next part is the reports. So it'll tell you exactly where the student is. So if it'll tell you an assignment should take 15 minutes. And if a student, does it in 3, that might explain why they didn't do well. So there's a real clear reports, and you can go back and reflect on it as a parent or as staff. We do this as well. We can use these reports to really reflect on the student performance, or, hey, this should have taken you 15 minutes. It took you an hour and a half. Is it too hard? What's going on? And so we can use these reports to really help us. And that's what guides us on what a typical day should look like. And so you can kind of plan out and see what's coming and how much time. For younger kids, there'll probably be a little less time on that. Do the kids watch videos? Yes, it is video heavy, primarily with an instructional staff. So it's broken up like a teacher would a lesson. So there's a warm up there's an introduction, there's some guided practice in the middle, and they've really broken up the lessons nicely to match kind of what a teacher would do. And with a lot of those, there are videos, and then there's some practice. There's a certain amount of time they have to spend online. There is some flexibility. They have to be able to try to keep on pace with where it's at. The best way to preview the online program, I think I just saw somebody was putting links on there. It's just edgenuity.com. There's some great videos in there. You can see what it looks like for a student, and you can kind of preview some of those. There's one, can my student use Edgenuity, World Academy if they go to the physical school? Those are kind of individually based questions. It depends on what's happening in the homeschool. What does that look like? Why are we using it? Are we using it because there's not a class that's offered for a student at a different time? So there's some flexibility. All those are kind of individual based questions, though I can't really give you an umbrella answer for. Already talked about the next one. So in terms of parents, as a parent, you will have a login that you can see their progress. It'll show you those same boxes, and it'll tell you where your student is. So it's even more up to date than, say, Power School. Power School is going to have there could be a lag in there, but it's pretty immediate feedback. So you can stay up to know. And absolutely, we'll give you some training on how to get in there and look at the system, how to read the reports. But it's super helpful. We find that most students have more success the more we are involved as parents, and I found that myself as a parent. The next question, I've gotten a lot of questions about, do they provide special education assistance to children that are on IEPs? If your student is on an IEP, it is an individual basis. I think it's a decision that as a team you really want to have. I'm happy to sit in on that conversation with you and your team to talk about the supports that are there. There's a lot of great pieces in there. There's guided notes, there's translations, there's the script of what the teacher's reading. You can print off. You can read along with it. You can take snapshots out of it. You can put it into your digital notes. So there is a lot of supports to help students that are needing that extra support. But I think that would be more of an individual basis that would really make sure that you're talking to the staff at your neighborhood school to see what their thoughts are. And if it's not a good fit, then we're going to need to come up with another plan. And that's the key, is that there's a lot of flexibility within the system. To make sure that we're having it at the appropriate level. So there's a leveling aspect to it. There's also a lot of supports. Can a high school student meet with a counselor virtually to pick their class schedule? Absolutely. We do have counselors available to make sure that students are on track to graduate, that they're taking enough courses, that they're doing well, they're taking the appropriate courses. So we do have appropriate counseling and support. So that's the really nice part about this, is you still have those resources from Eagle County schools, because it is an Eagle County school. It's not just some kind of random online program out there. So you do have all those supports. Student at taking DE courses, absolutely. For those of you that are in high school, and if you want to take DE classes, I think part of the question here looks like it's around online courses. Absolutely. Those are available. I haven't heard specifically what CMC is doing, but DE represents dual enrollment, so you can still do the dual enrollment classes through CMC as a World Academy student. You're not giving that up, but in the past, those classes you either took on campus or you did online. So you actually go to CMC campus, or you do it through CMC online. The next one here, what happens if a family loses connection to the internet? That's the nice part. There are humans right here in the Valley. We've all experienced disconnects to the internet. Luckily, I think we're all doing well right now. So with that, it's just a connection. It's a touching base with the teacher, and just saying, hey, let you know, I'm a little bit behind because we lost the internet service. And that's the nice part, because it's staff right here in the Valley that you can interact with. So if there's connection issues, we also, the tech department is another resource. That's a district resource that's available to our students as well. And so they'll support. They support. The tech team is awesome. We talk to them when they're having issues with logins and things like that, as well as we have Edgenuity's tech team as well. In terms of supports for students, that speak languages other than English is the question. So there is translations. The only thing that doesn't translate is the videos, but the scripts are there and those will translate. So everything does translate to not just Spanish, but whatever language you may need. It's a pretty robust system. That's the other reason why we really like this program over the previous one we used. It's not the best support, but it does help accessibility, that it does, work with more students. What is the availability and requirements of real teacher contact? The first part is there is an expectation on the students and the staff that they're interacting. That's what makes this key. You're going to work harder when you know the person that's on the other end of it. And we got to make that relationship a powerful piece. So my staff's in frequent contact with your students, and the expectation is that your students in frequent contact with our staff. In terms of the availability, we're still working on what school kind of looks like a little bit in terms of staffing of those parts. I can talk to you historically, every teacher was available at least 90 minutes a day to interact with the Edgenuity kids or the World Academy kids. Accountability measures and supports available if a student is struggling. We keep a close eye on them. So we're looking at the student's performance each week. And so we're touching base when a student starts falling behind, which does happen. Some students just are not real successful sometimes because they just rather be in a school. If that happens, we're on it, we're interacting, we're contacting you, we're first contacting the student to find out what's going on and connecting with them. So, it's not just kind of a wasteland where they're off and there's not a human development. There's, as a team, we're meeting every week and we're going through every student and making sure they're not falling behind. And then as a team, we're interacting with them to find out what we can do to support them. There's a question here in terms of extracurricular. Absolutely. Sports, extracurricular at the home schools. Absolutely. You can participate in that. That is not an issue. We are under the same stay-at-home orders, as the county is. So the sports get put on hold for them. They do for us as well. There's a part on here in terms of the social emotional issues and monitoring that. That's a communication piece. Historically, you usually see some changes in performance, and that's where the team's keeping a close eye to see if there is some social emotional aspect of what's going on and why the students are falling behind. As I said before, we still have resources as well if that does become an issue. That's one big piece that, early on in online learning, it became a kind of a safe haven for students that maybe struggled with, say, anxiety, depression, for them to withdraw more. And so the social emotional side is definitely a concern for us that we keep an eye on the best you can. But obviously it's hard when you don't see the kids. So we definitely like families to be interacting with us as well to help keep an eye on them. The next one, if you take classes online, will it seem to have the same validity as they take classes at school? Absolutely, it's teaching the same standards. Some courses I would even say are a little bit more rigorous. So they're valid, they're aligned. It's a proven program that there's been success in it, and it grows kids for sure. In terms of teachers, can they interact live? Yeah, there won't be face-to-face interactions, but there will be opportunities for virtual meetings to interact with students and teachers. So it's not just via email. In terms of hardcore deadlines, it's not as much that. This next question asks if a student falls behind, internet issues and things like that. That's the human element that you have to have, because they're not just interacting with the computer. There's a human on the other end of it that they can interact. If internet's crashing, computer issues, all these things can really support and help the kiddo. Check my time. Stay on track. But if there's issues, if they're traveling, we usually ask that they communicate with us if they know they're going to be out for a bit, just like they would in a traditional setting. In terms of classes and leveling is the next question, wondering if they're enrolled in a regular school, will those classes be available? All the same classes should be available. They're also asking about remedial work. Absolutely, if there's gaps in the students' learning, we can really target this program to meet their needs. They can take assessments, and those assessments would give us a diagnostic of what the student needs, and then we could really target those and assign lessons for the students. So not only does it have the normal classes, it's an amazing tool to really individualize it based on what the students need, maybe. The next question is just in terms of World Academy's previous performance. I like this one. So World Academy has been around for quite some time. It's been a number of years since we have taken state tests. We feel like the program has improved greatly. What we've done is, World Academy is not a dumping ground. In its early inception, it was kind of a dumping ground, and people and folks are just kind of disenfranchised or seeking online learning for kind of not the right reasons. Or possibly there's a lot of students that maybe at another school had disciplinary issues and things like that, and the parents were done and they pulled their kid. So a lot of students were in World Academy early on that probably shouldn't have been there, which is why you see some of those older scores. The reality of it is you need a certain number of kids taking a test for it to be reported, and we just haven't had that. We've only had certain students in certain grade levels, and the N is not high enough to be reported out. So we feel good about it. There's a lot of great diagnostics. This is about your kid, where they're at, and are we growing your kid? And I feel this tool will give us enough information to know we're growing. So we definitely feel like the right kiddos have been using the program for quite some time now, and the passing rate shows it. How will we accommodate more students? We got to know. We got to know. we need to know how many students were there, and we're going to accommodate if this is just a major need. We're going to do that. So if you're worried about a filling up before you get in, I don't feel like you have to have that fear right now. We're going to do our best to accommodate everybody. There's a great question on here in NCAA accreditation. Is World Academy accredited? Edgenuity is. The program itself, the curriculum, absolutely 100% is. The problem with NCAA is you have to have each school accredited individually. In World Academy, it's been a process that you have to have certain things in line, and the goalposts have been moved a little bit on that. So as a school, it's not NCAA accredited, but Edgenuity is. So there's some workarounds that we used. You can use Edgenuity teachers, and it's not a problem. So if your student is an NCAA athlete and you think your student's going to do sports in college, it's just something to let us know. But we have some works on that, and we're in the process of getting accredited. It has nothing to do with the performance of the school. It's 100% just kind of jumping through the NCAA hoops, which there's a few of them. The next one with the IEP, I feel like I've already answered that. There's one, is this a homeschooling program rebranded for Eagle County schools? To some level, yeah, this has been what a lot of homeschooling families have chosen. And this was an option for folks that wanted to homeschool, so not just out there on their own doing it. Answered that one. We've got that one. Another one, a senior that only needs a few credits to graduate with this program work? Absolutely. It is a high school diploma. It's signed by all the same people. It's just it's gotten to my name versus your typical or your traditional principal doesn't have donor parish's name on there. Other than that, it's signed by the same people. It's still a high school diploma. And so you we just assign the classes that you need, and your kiddo will graduate. Not a problem. How successful is this program? A while ago when it was a dumping ground, the kids were not great. It was not very successful. I'd say passing rate wasn't great. Now we feel really good, and it's better than most online programs. It's around 70% of the classes are passed by students, which is, in a secondary setting, it's considering some of the students that do it. I think it's a rigorous program, so it's very successful. Students, how do they respond with the system? School's still school. They're responding a lot better to Edgenuity than they used to the other program that we used to use. But they like the flexibility. Some students, they really like kind of the independence to do their focused learning is what we found over time. Everything's just focused on me. I'm not cooling my heels over here while other folks are working on this over there. So a lot of students are happy in terms of it, but you got to make sure that in terms of the social aspect of it, I usually talk a lot to parents about having a plan. Where's your kid socially interacting? Where's that coming? If we do have a larger threshold of families, those things that could be potentially created. But that's always something to think about, and that ties into this next question, which is just about that social emotional aspect of how does it impact the lives, and make sure your kiddo, if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, things like that, we need to have a frank conversation to make sure that this is a good fit. Does World Academy provide Chromebooks? I have to verify that with tech that's part of their plan and where they're at, but I don't see why that would not be the case. I'm sure that they are. Typical schedule looks like, I kind of already shared that a little bit. They just have the coursework and assignments for that day, then they keep moving on. If a student does a World Academy only for a semester, we have flexibility. I think I saw the question popped up. We do have flexibility if you want to transition between the neighborhood school and our school. That's the nice part. It's all Eagle County schools, and it's easy to do that. We just ask that we do it at appropriate times. If you're looking for just a 2-week solution, then work with your neighborhood school on whatever they're offering virtually. This is for that longer span. But if it's that longer span and we're feeling like it's not a good fit, then we would want to look at what we can do to get you back in your neighborhood school, or if it's not working there and you need something a little bit more consistent what it looks like, then you can always come to us. So there is that opportunity to go back and transition between the two. I think I've gotten most of those. Answer that one. In terms of AP classes, we can talk about AP, and the problem with AP is it's kind of the testing. What does the testing look like at the end? We do prefer the students do DE, but I'm more than happy to have the AP conversation. Absolutely. That's more of an individual conversation though. We have had students try it in the past. Are the classes scheduled like a normal school schedule, or are the times flexible? The times are completely flexible. What is scheduled is when the teachers are available to interact with your students. So that would only be the thing that's locked in. Other than that, the school is completely flexible. The next one, will my children be assigned a local teacher to assist them with questions? Will always be the same teacher? Yeah. That's how historically it's always been, and that's what this program offers that a lot of other online programs just can't offer, is that local connection. How do we enroll? So right now, you can just let me know, shoot me a name with your details, your name, your student's name, grades, homeschool. That's kind of where we're at there. I'll probably be firing out a Google form here soon. And make it a little easier to collect that information. But at this point, you can just reach out to me and contact me. Email works great. At this point, we're not in the office yet. So my office manager registrar, they're not back in the office yet. So we really can't do the proper enrolling at this time. But I think as much information I can get for people that are interested, let me know. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to reach out and have a conversation with you. I've been doing a lot of that the last couple of weeks. So in terms of enrolling at this time, you just got to reach out to me, and that's fine. It's just troy.dudley@eagleschools.net, and let me know. There's definitely some questions on field trips. That's one that we haven't done that in the past. When you're a World Academy student, you're a World Academy student, so we haven't really made that connection with the neighborhood schools in that way to connect that in that method. But this is a new time. I'm definitely somebody always looking to improve programs. And thanks, Missy. Just saw my name pop up. So I'm always up for new pieces. But a lot of that has to do with the safety and social distancing and all the regulations. And who knows what's happening with field trips during the pandemic, anyways. So I can't really answer the field trip questions. I see a few of those on there. Primarily because of we just don't know what the future holds, and that's not necessarily something we've done in the past, but I'm always up for conversations about what we can do to improve the program. Another one in terms of funding, there's definitely a few people that have asked about funding. So it is an Eagle County school. I think I saw some on there about cost too. At this point, there's no cost. We use the state funding to pay for the program, the staffing, and all those parts. So there's not. Does it get funding? Yes, we do get the same state funding that the other school. I don't know if it's the same, but we do get state funding. So it still stays in the district. That's the nice part. If you go to other programs other than World Academy, there's a lot of them looking for your students because they want that funding. But we do get funding as a district. I'm not sure it's at the same level as what a student that is in a brick and mortar school. That would be a question a little bit above my pay grade. All right, so I think I've gotten through most of those. I'm sorry if I scanned past one of yours. What are we doing in time? Got a few more minutes left and my next meeting's starting. If World Academy ends up not being a good fit, can we switch to a regular school? Yes, and we're going to support you in that. And we'll probably identify it before you do because we're going to be looking closely at your student. So we would be doing that, but again, it just has to be an appropriate time to make that switch. And before we just call it a bad fit, we have a lot of supports that we put in place to support your students and make sure we give it a good shot as possible to keep your family, for whatever reasons, safe and we're at. Answered that one, I believe. Just enrolling, contact me. Let me see. I feel like there's a lot more here in the comments. Let me just give you this quick scan. I can't give you a clear answer on how many hours for an elementary. I'm at the top or am I at the bottom? Let me shoot to the top. Yes, the meeting is being recorded. Hopefully I answered a little bit of the question on the K through 6 enrolling. At this point, just connect with me. Is there a deadline? I'm not going to rush you on that. The sooner we can know that you're interested, the better. Even if you just let me know you're interested, that's awesome. That helps us out. But again, it is a district school, so we do have some flexibility. So there's not a hard, fast deadline. I think I talked about the ability to be part of sports. Absolutely. Depending on what sports look like, you can participate in those pieces. I think I answered the one, if you have learning difficulties, it's all adjustable and there's a lot of supports built within the system. In terms of a student receiving speech, so with the speech, that's a one-on-one. So that's a question that's going to be covered with the team, with ESS, and making sure that the supports are still there. But I would definitely hope to see that happen. And if a location needs to be created, then I could offer that for you, and we could find a space for you to get that speech therapy, as long as we can work it out with the service provider. How easy it is to switch? It's super easy. We're a Eagle County school, so we use Power School. They use Power School. It's super easy to switch back and forth. So I'm looking at this question about if they're willing to switch. If COVID-19 cleans up quickly and they want to switch back, absolutely. We just try to be purposeful on the time. The difference between remote learning at Eves and World Academy. Really the main difference would be is you're going to want World Academy if you're looking at being remote long term. If you're looking at, you have to be out for just a couple weeks, then I would really stay with Eves or whichever your home school is. This is more of a little bit of a long term. Do high school students get the same credits to transfer to college? So when we're talking credits to transfer to college, you're talking AP or DE. I've answered that a little bit. You take DE at CMC, absolutely. AP, we really haven't done much, so we'd have to have that conversation on that if you've got your heart set on AP. No cost. Thanks, Yvonne. Seeing you help me with that one. Are you worried about too many enrolled for your current support staff, and is there a cutoff amount of students? At this point, it's too early. I've got plenty of other things to worry about at this point. I'm not worried about that at this point. We're just gonna have to figure out the staffing. This is a local school, and we'll figure it out. Is there dual language? There's really not. It's more of you can take languages. There's languages often within it, but dual language in its purest form, no. Can you start with World Academy and then transfer? Yeah, you can transition. If you choose to start with us and then move, you absolutely can. And Yvonne answered that one for me already. Thank you. Awesome. All right, we've got about 5 minutes here. What do you expect average class size to be, or teacher-kiddo ratio? The system does a tremendous amount of the interaction and the grading, and the teachers do a lot more review. What I really like about Edgenuity, I haven't talked too much about this, is with our other program, teachers were spending a ridiculous amount of time just grading work and just giving scores to work, and that's what a lot of the interaction was, just giving scores. What's nice about Edgenuity is there is a lot of automated scoring in there where it suggests a score and the teacher takes a little bit of time to review, but the teacher-student interaction, this is going to be a lot more about feedback. It's about feedback. Hey, looking at your quiz, you're struggling with this concept. You need to go back and look back at this, and it's going to be a lot more specific to the student needs and less of the teacher just in their grading. The nice part is that means the teachers can interact with more kiddos. So I don't have the exact ratio. I know the ratio is pretty huge in other online settings that you'll see on TV and here on the radio. We don't have an exact number. I think Phil quoted last night, it could be up to 100 kids that somebody might be interacting with, which is totally doable. When you think about in a high school setting, teachers are interacting with that many or potentially more in a normal day in a secondary class. Yeah, how are we doing on time? I got 3 minutes, just kind of screening through. Yeah, so they could enroll in like a Spanish class, dual enrollment. The instruction, say math, is typically offered in Spanish. You could take a Spanish course. The students can take Spanish course. They're offered at multiple levels, so you don't fall behind if you're in a dual language school. But it would look a little different where it doesn't have the instruction offered in Spanish per se like it does in a regular class. Is there a specific type of computer needed to access the program? Chromebooks are totally perfect. Chromebooks are great. You do not need to get a fancy computer. You don't have to download software. It's all on a URL based. Do you have to be an Eagle County resident to enroll? I do get a limited amount of students that are outside. We have in the past, I think we can have a certain number. So if somebody's interested in World Academy and they're outside of Eagle County, you can have them contact me. I do get a certain number of students we could enroll from outside the county. You definitely have to be a state of Colorado resident though. I don't have a hard, fast deadline on the registration at this point. As we know, school just got pushed back another week last week, so we have another week to really make some of these determinations. Please just let me know if you're interested, though, and that would help me tremendously. How many hours a day should elementary family expect? That's a question I can try to get you a better answer for. I've interacted more with the secondary with this program. Definitely it's less than an hour per course. I think I've answered a lot of the rest of these. All right, well, we're about the time. It'll give me 1 minute before my next meeting. Thank you, everybody. Oh, thank you. I hope this answers some of your questions. Please let me know, contact me, shoot me an email, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk. I know there's a lot of anxiety and concerns around, what school might look like. So don't think twice. Shoot me an email. I'm trying to, still balance a little bit of my time here the last few days, but thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it. And I think I'll sign off at this point.